Anytime you get a chance to come up here and speak, and Chuck will know it all too well, there's just a lot of pressure from yourself to make sure you get across what you want to say so that it's not just good for me, but it's good for you, because it means nothing if I come up here and speak something that means a lot to me and it doesn't ever actually get a chance to affect anybody. So I talked to Pastor Tom before I did this, and I go, man, it's so hard to pick just one topic, one thing. And he goes, it is harder when you only get a chance to speak maybe like once or maybe twice a year, because you have 6 months or so of just time that you've been growing with the Lord or really struggling with the Lord, and now you have to pick one thing to kind of share about. So I'm not doing that. I'm just sharing over the last 6 months, because we have been in a pandemic for 6 months. That's crazy. It was March, right? When people started closing down businesses and everything got turned upside down. And so I just wanted to kind of take you guys through that process for me, and some of the things that I've been learning during that time, whether it be good, bad, in between, because all of it is useful for the Lord, right? He uses the good times and the bad. So during the pandemic, I had really, went through this weird timeline of a week of sweet, this is awesome. My whole family is at home. We're all together. When does that ever happen? We're just going to hang out and love each other all the time. And I could bake cookies, and we could hang out. And then after about a week, I hear you. After about a week, I was like, I could organize my whole house, all of it. And I kept seeing posts of people organizing their house, and I was like, I should get on that. So I was, spring cleaning, yay. So I'm organizing it and realizing, well, by the end of this dang pandemic, my house is going to be a disaster anyway. So I did some spring cleaning and cleaned stuff up, and then it was still pandemic after I got done. And so I realized, okay, I got a lot more time. And so I just started asking myself some different questions and kind of started walking through some things. And some of the things that I came up with is I'm realizing for a long time, some of my excuses with the Lord had been I'm just really busy. I just have a lot to do. Have you ever been in that place where it's just I'm just busy. I just have a lot to do. I go to work. I need to get dinner on the table at this time. If you don't pick up dinner from that night, you're going to have a pile of dishes the next day. Then you got to do that. Then you've got bedtimes if you've got little ones. It just goes on and on and on. So I stopped for a minute and I realized I have a lot of time now. And I'm not really doing much with it for the Lord. And I had to take a second and kind of stop for a minute. And I realized, man, I'd had the excuse I didn't have a lot of time, and now I do, and I'm still not using it. So what's that problem there? What's going on there? And why did I think that was a reason? And then it's not there anymore, and I'm still not doing it. So there's something to look at in there. So then Netflix series happen. Who's with me? There's nothing wrong with them, but we're just going to take a deep road real quick here, and it's going to go to a dark place, and then I promise we're going to get out of it. Netflix series are not bad, but they're about 10 episodes, because Netflix is weird, and they only do 10 episodes for a season and then get you hooked, and then they wait 2 years to make the next season. But I was like, man, my first thought, new Netflix series came on, and I thought I could smash this in a weekend. Literally, I was proud of myself, boom, I could for sure spend a good 4 hours a day watching 4 episodes, because they're an hour long, 10 hours of time. I could smash this in a weekend. Not a week, a weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, boom. And I was proud of myself, really proud. So then the gut punch is coming right after this. So then I started thinking to myself, man, so I can carve out 10 hours of my time over the weekend to watch a Netflix series that just came out like 2 days ago, and I'm going to reschedule anything to make sure I can make it happen. But if I spent 10 hours of time with the Lord over the weekend, it would seem ludicrous. At least in my world. I'm just being honest. I'm not saying that's for you. But for me, that went through my mind. Man, 10 hours, like whether it be in prayer, whether it be just time in the Word, doing Bible studies, like teaching, I would feel like that seems very like extra, very next level. And I don't know if I want to be there. And I was like, oh, that's really bad. It's really bad. But it's exactly what I thought. And so I just started kind of going through all these questions of why it's hard for me to spend time with the Lord, or why other things seem more appealing to me at the time. But really, I mean, literally 10 episodes, and then the thing is done for 2 years. I'm not even going to remember the 10 episodes by the time the next season comes out. Why was it valuable? It wasn't valuable. So, a certain saying started coming in my head, and I mean, I've thought about this. I mean, only 2 months ago or so is when Pastor Tom asked me to speak, but this has been kind of in my head since like April, because remember, the first few weeks was like vacation, I can clean my house, Netflix series, and then the gut punch. So about April is when I started thinking this way, and a certain saying came to mind, and for anybody that knows anything about the autism spectrum disorder, there's a certain saying called a fixed interest. So if you've ever heard of that, it's pretty similar to having a hobby, but it's almost a hobby that you almost feel like nothing in your day is in the right place if you don't have that fixed interest. You almost feel not complete. You literally might get like anxiety attacks. You might feel really depressed, not able to get out of bed. It's something that just helps fuel your day. And so that's been something that I've had to learn a little bit more about here in the recent last few years and stuff. So I've started realizing that when someone on the spectrum has a fixed interest, it's not just something that like they flippantly do sometimes, but it's something that they really need it in their day to help them to be able to do the rest of the day. And so I started piecing apart the words because I just like doing that. It helps me to focus on a Bible study. I don't know if anybody has trouble figuring out where to start on a study. If you ever just see scripture and there's a word that you're like, well, that's a little different than maybe we would use on a normal day, I challenge you to just get a dictionary out or even get a Bible commentary out or Google it. Just make sure what you Google that it's the right thing, because there's sometimes that anybody can write something on Google. But you just start piecing apart the word, and I feel like it gives you a whole different context of what it's about, and it's just some more depth to it. So fixed by itself is to direct one's eyes, their mind, or attention, and this is the key part, steadily or unwaveringly towards something. So this isn't to fix your eyes, look away, squirrel, come back to it, which is probably more how my ADD mind works, very squirrely. But, so it's fixed, to direct your eyes, mind, and attention steadily or unwaveringly towards something. And an interest, a state of wanting to know or learn something. But my favorite is the second one that went down. It was a subject in which one is concerned or enthusiastic about it. And I started thinking, like, what if my fixed interest was my relationship with the Lord? I mean, truly, if that was my fixed interest, we talk about it all the time. Jesus, be the center of my life. Be the one that guides me, my direction. But I think there's still a lot of me that struggles to really do that and make that happen in my own life. I love loving people. That's not hard for me at all. I love people so much. But my one-on-one time with the Lord, I struggle with through the week. I have reasons why there's just not enough time, or honestly, I just don't like to read very much. I struggle with reading. I don't like reading out loud very much. It gives me so much anxiety. You have no idea. I'm up here and I'm thinking, ooh, if I look down and I look at the wrong thing and I get mixed up, and I struggle with it. And who likes doing what they're not good at? It's not very much fun. I'd rather sing all day long because I like that, and it comes pretty easy. I like it. So I've realized, what if my fixed interest was my relationship with the Lord? And a few verses came to mind very specifically when I went through this. And the first one is Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. And I'm just going to read that out to you after I tell you. Reading's not my strong suit, and I don't like it, and it makes me very nervous. Let's do it. All right. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Let us fix our eyes on him. When I started trying to piece apart what it really looked like to fix my eyes on God, and let me tell you, there's a difference of over the last few months, me doing this for myself, and then once I started this study. I was nervous as all get out, because I knew that this is something I truly struggle with myself, that I'm working through on my own basis, but also just choosing to share it with you guys, because if I'm there, there's got to be somebody else that maybe could get something from it. And if not, then it's just me. That's okay. But I started realizing it just takes discipline. Discipline. And so when I think of the word discipline, I've been on many, many journeys of eating healthy and working out, and the discipline it takes to make my body in a way that is healthy for myself, for the Lord, for my family, whatever the reason is. And I've realized, man, I don't like that journey either. It's not very much fun either. And so I started looking at discipline, and there was someone that came to mind. I don't know who, maybe my husband, that he's come up before and kind of talked about powerlifting, and that's something that he really enjoys and he's done in competition. He's getting older, and so he has decided to stop doing it in competition because he's just getting older. He's starting to hurt. But he still enjoys it a lot. So I asked if he would come up, and I'm just going to interview him. Because anytime, it's okay. It doesn't mean anything. It was my bookmark. That's good. I'm not going to get it. Come on up. So Dalton's going to come up, and I'm just going to interview him, because anytime I can make somebody else nervous so they have to speak in front of people. You actually have a mic right on that stand that I sat there for you. Come on over. And then just flip it up, I think.
It's already on, I thought.
No, it's on now. It was on mute. It was like powered on, but not on, if that makes sense. So, all right, so I'm just going to ask you a few questions about discipline.
Okay, what do you want to ask?
You might need to put that in front of your mouth.
What do you want to ask?
His voice is very deep, and he's very quiet. So when it comes to discipline with powerlifting, you know, what are some of the main things that you need to be able to do when you do powerlifting?
Probably you have to have a good technique.
They've got to hear you.
You have to have good technique. You have to be able to go to the gym quite often. And you have to, lift in a specific order.
A specific order? So how did you learn the right order?
I talked to a lot of people, and I did a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you don't lift the right muscle group on the right day, it can throw, your whole lifting schedule off.
Wow, so, what you did in one day, if you didn't have the right order, it could affect, the next day's workout because the
Yes.
wrong muscles would be kind of whopper jogged? That's my
Yeah.
word for it.
Yes.
I obviously do not power lift.
If whopper jog means hurt, then yes.
Okay. So then, now if you are doing powerlifting, is it more than just going to the gym, or is really just getting to the gym the biggest part?
For for me, it's a little bit more than going to the gym. So usually I do a lot of research before I go to the gym to know what I'm supposed to do. But it's like a 6 months process usually. So if you're getting ready to lift in competition, you got to do it 6 months out before you actually go lift.
Okay. And then what was the other question that I know I was like, I for sure want to ask? Oh, I know what it is. He's not going to like this one.
Probably not.
So when you're doing like competitive powerlifting, are you supposed to like eat a certain way?
Yeah, but I don't really do that.
So you
I like to eat.
struggled
I
with
like to eat what I like.
disciplining yourself?
Yeah, I like to eat what I like to eat. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you think at times, do you think that kind of hurt you or?
Yeah, I think it affects the way that I lift. I mean, I'm still pretty strong for the most part. But like when you watch the elite powerlifters lift, they're on a strict diet to help fuel their muscles because you have to eat at a certain time and you have to eat a certain thing at that time, and that's just not me.
So he liked the sport itself, but the eating, he was like, forget it. I'm still going to go to McDonald's.
Yes.
Okay. He's like, correct. And then what else? Oh, did you just contact anybody? You said you would definitely ask questions to people. Did you just contact anybody, or did you kind of like find someone that was pretty knowledgeable?
I found somebody pretty knowledgeable. So usually, because I did a lot of research, I'd find the elite lifters from this area, and then I would ask them questions and ask them how they lift and ask them about their different techniques because each body's like different. So you have to modify a technique to fit
Your body.
structure. So
Yeah. So when you did that, I just have one more question, I promise.
okay.
He's like, please, only one more question. When you did that, I think something that I'm hearing is that you had to find somebody knowledgeable. You had to kind of put yourself out there. Like
Yes.
they weren't going to come to you. They weren't going to be like, hey, I saw you in Marion, Ohio at the YMC of A, and you lift sometimes. Would you like me to like give you all these pointers and walk with you through your workout?
No, and to be honest, there's not a lot of lifters in Marion, so I had to go like outside to different like counties and things like that.
Good stuff. All right. Thanks for talking to us about
Yeah.
discipline.
All right.
Let me
Peace
see that.
out.
Make sure it comes off. Oh, yeah. Give him a round of applause. Yeah. Okay. You can just set it back over there. Thank you. Made him very uncomfortable. But I promise it had a meaning. It had a reason. But, okay. So, Carrie's like, that poor man deals with her all the time. Yes, he does. So I wanted to take you through a verse, and I was so excited when I read this verse and when I thought about discipline and when I thought about this lesson. So Hebrews, we're actually just jumping down a little bit. It's Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11. And I just want you to like hear it, take it in, let it soak in. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So you have to train yourself. It's not going to come naturally. Pastor Tom Hypes is calling me right now. Later, Pastor Tom. Later. You might answer my phone just in case for some reason I like have a booger or something on Facebook Live and just watch. Pocket dialed. Thank you for the comic relief. Okay, let's continue. All right. So anyway, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. It takes time. It takes diligence. It takes just devoting day after day to something. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace. And I don't know about you, but I love when I'm at peace with the Lord. When I'm in a place of feeling that I'm in this walk with him. It's not every day good. It's not every day bad, but I'm walking with him and I have peace about having the bad days and knowing he's still with me through those too. Because you can be in peace and still be in a traumatic or traumatizing time and have peace with the Lord. That's the power of the God that we serve, which is amazing. Amazing. When you think of some of the things that we go through, and when we walk with the Lord through those, how he can be a steady guide for us. Amazing. Amazing. He loves us so, so much. Dalton and I had gone through Bible school at one point, and I absolutely loved all of it. It was so hard. It was really hard work. It was definitely discipline, and I was not always good at it. And schooling is not the easy part for me. Relationships are a little easier, that type of thing. So it was a lot of dedication, a lot of time. But we had one of our professors, and he was such a sweet old guy, and I just loved him so much. But he had told us something, and it has stuck with me and definitely fueled me. So if you think of writing something down, I feel like this is one that you would want to write down, and maybe write it in your kitchen and post it somewhere or something. But God will always love us right where we are, but he is not willing to leave us there. He desires growth in our lives. And so it just reminds me of a God that does have grace for us, that does walk with us through the good times, the bad times, the hard times, and the times where I'm just not dedicating my time to him. And he's still like, I'm still here. You just need to come home. So he walks with us. He's not willing to leave us there. He desires growth for our lives. So this week, a big question came to mind, and obviously just like kind of a prayer time. I was spending time with the Lord, and I was praying about it because this lesson was absolutely traumatizing me of how to share it with everybody else and not just myself. And so I started saying things like, at what point do we say, thank you, God, for your grace? Thank you for your forgiveness. Thank you for the sins that I've committed. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you when I've lost focus and when I haven't spent the right time with you, or where I've made you a lesser priority. Thank you for walking with me through that. But thank you for bringing me from that point, and let's walk past it. And I think that's what we forget. We say, thank you, God. Forgive me of my sins. I did some wrong. Thank you, God. Instead of, thank you, God. Your grace is sufficient. I screwed up again. I messed up. I sinned. I asked forgiveness for that. Can you move me past that? Can we walk past that and grow from it and just keep on? And that's exactly what he wants to do with us. So I wrote down just a few starting points. I think sometimes it's hard when we're trying to start a new journey or when we're trying to reevaluate. I think that's a big thing for the pandemic. I have had to reevaluate my relationship with the Lord. And so a few things to start with, I think, is just our time in prayer, our time in the Word, and our time in fellowship. And there's a lot of other areas of what we do and why we do it and all of that. But when you think of those three things, you can kind of get a basis. Do I struggle in any of these three things? Because when you think of all of it, it gets overwhelming. It's a lot. So I've got these three things. Do I spend time in prayer? And if I do spend time in prayer, is it for myself? Is it for others? Is it for growth? Is it for just what I want? Is it for what I need? Time in the Word. If you're struggling on where to start, what to do, I feel like sometimes I'm just like, well, I just don't know where to start. Sometimes that's hard for me. So we've been going over 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John here recently. And when I looked at it, so there's 5 chapters of 1st John, and then 2nd John is 1 chapter, and 3rd John is 1 chapter. So if you wanted to, in 1 week, you could go through 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, just a chapter a day. And they're very small chapters, but there's so much encouragement and so much, just good stuff. I don't know. Just, it's so good. I mean, it's so encouraging. So anyway, if that seems like a place for you, I talked to somebody just this morning about YouVersion and Right Now Media. If those two things are something that you have on your phone, right, or YouVersion, free app, they have so many different Bible studies. They send you reminders so that you can't forget or not have time. Because if you don't have time, you have to actually say, like, delete, like, I don't want to do it. So, but those are great tools. The Right Now Media is something we give out for free as a new person that comes in as a guest or visiting us. And so once you have that, it's a free tool as well. The church pays for it. You can go on there. There's studies on so many different things. I've done studies on anxiety, depression. I've done things on marriage. I love it so much. There's simple ways to just start getting involved with your relationship with the Lord. Our fellowship, our time at church, our time with community. And I think something that I'm struggling with, and just this week I had to kind of do it for myself because I realized I was doing this message and there had been somebody on my heart over and over again, and I had just thought about them. I didn't call them. I didn't pray for them. Nothing. And so I was like, all right, I should probably call them if I'm going to write this down. But call a friend throughout the week. Call people. We're a community here at church, and it's easy on Sunday morning, but it's a lot better when you know that somebody's thinking of you during the week, and you think, nobody thinks about me. I come in on Sundays, and I leave. And it's so easy to get that mindset. But when we start calling each other during the week, when we ask how things are going, when we know when our kids have some program or something going on, and we say, hey, how is that going? Or it's amazing what it does for fellowship, for true fellowship. And I think the big part is doing all of this with joy. Living with God's joy, His joy. Joy is not based off of our circumstances. Nothing in my day can change joy. And I think that's the difference. I mean, a lot of people say, I'm so happy, or like, my child brings joy. Well, if your child's ratty in the next 5 minutes, you're going to be like, I still love you, but I don't like you right now. That's not the type of joy we're talking about. We're talking about a joy that's from the Father, that's never ending. I'm going to change to 1 John, maybe here in a second. There we go. We've got 1 John chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ is born of God. And everyone who loves the Father loves his child as well. This is how we know that we love the child of God, by loving God and carrying out his commands. I'm going to stop there for a second. Pastor Tom had given out, do you remember a few weeks ago? I think it was on, the 2nd, August 2nd or something like that, the first week in August. He had given out the list of different commands. And he's like, anybody need to work on any of those? Anybody like maybe missing the ball a little bit? And I was like, yeah, from the back row, which is really easy to nod your head because nobody sees it. So I'm back there, I'm like, yep, I could work on that, yep. And I loved it. It was such a reminder. If you want that list, I'm sure that you could email in and get that list, and we'll send it out to you, because I feel like, for me, I've got it hung up now, because I just need a reminder. I don't always see those. I don't always spend time, it cut out a little bit. I don't always spend time just looking at those. So I needed that reminder in front of me. It needs to be visually in front of me. And then on. This is love from God, to obey his commands. And his commands are not burdensome. And that's when I realized that, I was really off. There are times in my life I know that I've thought that serving the Lord has been a burden. or spending time with the Lord was a burden to my day. That that was taking me off my schedule. And so I just want to invite you guys to join me, because it's definitely joining me. This is my own thing that's going on. But joining me and not letting our walk with the Lord be a burden. It's not. It's not a burden. We looked before, and if we continue to grow in our relationship, it's not painful. It's not hard. It's not a burden. It brings righteousness and peace to those who've been trained by it. And so that's our goal, is to continue to train. And so I think the hard part for a lot of us is getting over the hump of it being painful or being hard or being apart from our day, at least for myself. That's sometimes. And I'm someone that I went to Bible school. My husband and I, we served overseas in Thailand. We did missions overseas. It was so much easier. I told Mike this morning, I was like, man, I'm so nervous for this lesson. And I know that this is something I struggle with. When we were in Thailand, we were doing ministry 16 to 18 hours a day. It was like all day long. It was what you breathed for, lived for. You only ate so you could fuel yourself, because you didn't want to croak for the second half of the day, because you had to keep going. Whether you were doing university ministry, elementary school ministry, we had the church ministry, we did an English foundation. It was all day long. And not only that, then you got to go in the community. You start praying with people, walking to their houses, because not all of them will ever come near a church. And so it was just a constant, everything you lived for was to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Everything. Morning, you wake up, you get ready, boom, that's your day. And so coming back, man, it was hard being there in different ways, but I would say that my relationship with the Lord, it doesn't struggle in the same ways. I get a message on Sunday mornings in my own language, and I can understand it, and that's really encouraging. But my personal walk with the Lord, when I was in Thailand, I couldn't rely on anybody else to do it. There wasn't anybody else to fuel me other than I needed to walk with the Lord, and I needed to make sure I was doing it. And now it's a lot easier to put it on Pastor Tom, or put it on Chuck, or just put it on getting something from the worship team, or getting something from my relationships. It's a lot harder to choose just to spend time. So anyway, I know that we are probably going to end shortly, but that's okay. I don't care. I really don't at this point. I want us to really get something from just fixing our eyes on the Lord. If you struggle with that, if you have a hard time with that, spend some time looking at it. God gives grace. So please don't sit here and be like, man, she wants us to be extra. No, but God does. God wants us to follow his commands. He wants us to be extra. He doesn't want us to be of the world. A few weeks ago, Pastor Tom said, do you act like you love Jesus? Do you act like you love others? Or do you act like you love the world? It's the same thing. Do we love Jesus? Do we love others? Do we love ourselves enough to follow who he is instead of loving the world? We are supposed to be extra. And that's okay. That's a good thing. So just a few questions that I want you to just remember. Are you fixing your eyes on the Lord through everything you do? The hard times, the good times, all of it. Whether you're starting over in life, whether you're finding a new path, whether you've been in the same job forever and you just feel groggy and like you're just trying to get through each day. Are your eyes focused on Jesus? How can he use that day? I think of different occupations, different people, what they do, where they're at in the world. I can't be everywhere in the world. We all need to be Jesus in the places that we're at and find ways where he can use us. whether it be to a coworker that you know is struggling, whether it be to a friend, just reaching out. And I think this is a really huge one, and without this, I don't think that we can really go anywhere else. Do you accept God's grace for your sin? And do you allow him to walk with you past it? Past it. He forgives it. He's done with it. It's easy for me to pick it back up and say, man, but I feel so guilty, or I feel so bad. Well, you're the only one feeling bad. God's like, hey, I'm over it. I'm over here. So just, are you willing to let him walk with you past it? Last week, I really loved Chuck had shared 3 main points. What's in your hand, what's in your wallet, and what's in your heart. And I loved it. And it's like, it's not about what's in your hand. It's not about what's in your wallet. Really, all of it comes back to what's in your heart. When we fix our eyes on the Lord, then what's in our hand becomes his tool and for his use. And when we fix our eyes on the Lord, what's in our wallet becomes for his use, for his glory. Right? When we fix our eyes on the Lord, what's in our heart is what's in his heart. He directs us. He guides us. I'm just saying. Is anybody else mind blown? I'm mind blown. So it's something I should have known forever, and I in some ways I have known it, but I haven't let it affect my life completely. He wants to use us. And this pandemic, at least for me, has been like any time that we have something that changes our normal day-to-day, what's already crazy, and makes it a new crazy, the Lord teaches us things in those times. Whether it be pandemic or whether it be your own personal tragedies, things that you're walking through, there is always a lesson to be made. And I was not going to share this, but I'm going to because I want to. Thanks. She said, you go, girl. I don't really need to go there to be able to share it, but I'm trying to anyway. Anyway, James chapter 1, verse 2 through 3, and it just talks about whenever we go through trials of many kind, that to walk through that because it gives us perseverance, and perseverance has to complete itself so that we may be lacking in nothing. And Kyler might be listening on Facebook Live, but that's always her favorite verse through youth group. She always shares that one. But it's true. These past 6 months, for me, there have been many different trials, many different things that have gone through it. We have a choice. We always have a choice. It's always a choice to yield to the flesh or yield to the spirit. And we have to make a choice. And we have to focus. We have to fix our eyes. So we're going to end with a music video that I had really just thought fit this really, really well. And for me, remember, this is not a death sentence. This is not burdensome. This should be a celebration. Remember, we talked about, 2 pages back, we talked about if we set our eyes on the Lord and if we have discipline, at first it's painful. But then later on we get righteousness and peace through those who have been trained by it. It takes time, it takes fellowship, it takes love, it takes, like Dalton said, seeking out people that can help you along the way, putting yourself out there and not expecting people just to come to you and know what's going on. Put yourself out there. Ask for someone to walk with you. Let them know how they can be praying for you. You know what I mean? We have to do life together. It starts with some of those things. And above everything else, fix our eyes on the Lord. Let it be our fixed interest, and let that not be a bad thing, but a beautiful thing. Beautiful. When we have joy in the Lord, He uses us so much more than if we sit around and say, you know, I made it to church on Sunday. Check. can't wait to get done so I can go to lunch. Check. And after lunch, I'm going to watch Netflix for however many hours. Man, he wants to use us. So if this is something for you, if you feel like you are done letting your relationship with the Lord be something that is maybe just so-so, or maybe just kind of a burden, and you're ready for it to be something filled with joy, I just want you to stand up during this song. Say, today, right now, I just choose to make a difference. And I don't know why it's cutting it out, but that's okay. I'm really loud, so if it cuts out, we are fine. To just stand up and say, I'm done being mediocre. I'm done being just okay. I want to be extra. That's such a good thing. I want to be extra. I want the Lord to use me. I want my life to have peace in it. Maybe for the first time ever, I want my life to have peace.